Hey, welcome back to English in Fluency. I'm Alex, and I am so glad you clicked on this one because today we're doing something a little different and honestly, a little bit fun. If you've ever sat in front of a screen doing a listening test and felt your stomach drop, the second the audio started playing too fast, this video is for you. If you've ever paused a video, rewound it 3 times, and still weren't sure what the person actually said, this video is for you too. Today we're working on B1 level listening comprehension, and we're going to do it through 20 short, real, everyday conversations. Not boring textbook dialogues where nobody talks like that in real life. I'm talking about the kind of small talk you'd actually hear at a coffee shop, in a doctor's waiting room, on the phone with customer service, or chatting with a friend you haven't seen in years. Each conversation is short, natural, and followed by a couple of simple questions to check what you understood. So grab a notebook if you like taking notes, or just sit back and listen. Either way works. And stay until the end, because I've got a few tips that genuinely changed how fast my own students improved their listening skills, and a small challenge for you, too. Honestly, I remember exactly what it felt like when I was learning a new language myself. Sitting there thinking, everyone else understands this perfectly and I'm the only one lost, and I want to tell you right now, that's simply not true. Nobody catches every single word. Not even people listening in their own native language. Our brains are constantly filling in small gaps without us even noticing. And the more you practice, the better your brain becomes at doing exactly that in English too. So don't put pressure on yourself to understand 100% of everything you hear today. That's not the goal, and honestly, it's not even realistic, even for advanced learners. The goal is progress, small, steady progress, one conversation at a time, one useful phrase at a time. All right, let's get into it. Before we jump into the first conversation, let me quickly explain how this works, because I want you to get the most out of it. I'm going to play a short conversation between two people. Listen carefully, just once if you can, like a real test. Then I'll ask you 1 or 2 questions about what happened. Try to answer in your head, or out loud if you're brave, before I give you the answer. Don't worry if you miss something the first time. That's completely normal, even for people who've been learning English for years. The goal here isn't perfection, it's practice. The more you expose your ears to natural spoken English, the faster your brain starts recognizing patterns, catching keywords, and filling in gaps even when you don't understand every single word. That's actually the secret nobody tells you about listening skills. You don't need to understand everything. You need to understand enough. So, relax your shoulders, take a breath, and let's start with our first conversation. One more small thing before we begin. I'd genuinely recommend listening with headphones if you have them nearby. It makes a bigger difference than you'd think, especially for catching quieter words or fast speech. And if a conversation feels a little too quick the first time, that's completely fine. You can always come back and listen to this same section again later. There's no rule that says you have to get everything perfect on the first try. Learning a language isn't a straight line. It's messy. It goes up and down. Some days you'll feel like you understand everything. Other days a simple sentence will confuse you. And both of those days are completely normal parts of the process. What matters is that you keep showing up, keep listening, keep trying, and slowly, almost without noticing it, things start clicking into place. Okay, deep breath. Here we go. Actually, wait, before we jump in, let me share 3 quick things that tend to trip up B1 level learners specifically, because knowing these in advance genuinely helps. The first one is connected speech. That's when native speakers blend words together. So instead of hearing want to clearly, you'll often hear something that sounds more like wanna. Or instead of going to, you'll hear gonna. This isn't lazy speaking, it's just natural rhythm. And once your ear adjusts to it, it stops being confusing and actually starts helping you predict what's coming next. The second thing is weak forms. Small words like to, for, of, and are often said very quickly and quietly in a sentence, almost swallowed, while the important words, the nouns, the verbs, the numbers, are said more clearly and with more stress. So even if you miss a tiny word here and there, focus on catching those stressed, important words. They usually carry most of the meaning anyway. And the third thing is speed combined with emotion. When people are excited, annoyed, or in a hurry, they naturally speak faster. And that's exactly the kind of speech you'll hear in today's 20 conversations, because that's what real English sounds like. Keep these 3 things in mind as we go, and you'll notice they'll help you understand not just today's practice, but honestly, any English conversation you hear in daily life from now on. Our first conversation happens at a small coffee shop on a Monday morning. A woman named Mia walks in, and the barista, whose name is Daniel, is working behind the counter. Daniel says, "Good morning. What can I get for you today?" Mia replies, "Hi, could I get a medium latte, please? But with oat milk instead of regular milk?" Daniel says, "Sure, no problem. Do you want that hot or iced?" Mia says, "Hot, please. It's a bit chilly outside." Daniel asks, "Anything else? Maybe a pastry?" "We just got some fresh croissants." Mia thinks for a second and says, "Actually, yes. I'll take 1 croissant too, thank you." Daniel tells her the total will be $6.50 and asks if she's paying by card or cash. Mia says card and taps her phone on the reader. Daniel says, "That's all set. It'll be just a couple of minutes for the latte. We'll call your name when it's ready." Mia says, "Thank you," and finds a small table by the window to wait. Okay, so here are your questions. First, what does Mia order to drink, and how does she want it? Second, does she order any food, and if so, what? Take a second to think about your answers. Got them? Let's check. Mia orders a medium latte with oat milk, and she wants it hot, not iced, because she says it's chilly outside. And yes, she also orders a croissant after Daniel suggests it. This is such a common type of conversation, right? Ordering at a cafe. And one thing I want you to notice is how Daniel offers something extra, the pastry, without Mia asking for it first. That happens constantly in real English conversations. Someone adds an offer or a suggestion in the middle of a simple exchange, so keep your ears open for those little extra details, because tests love to ask about them. Quick vocabulary note before we move on. Did you catch the phrase instead of? Mia said oat milk instead of regular milk, and that little phrase, instead of, is used constantly in English whenever someone wants to replace one thing with another. You could say, "I'll take tea instead of coffee," or "Let's meet on Friday instead of Thursday." It's a small phrase, but it shows up everywhere in daily conversation, so it's worth remembering. Also notice how Daniel didn't just say, "Do you want anything else?" He specifically suggested the pastry. "We just got some fresh croissants." That's a really natural sales technique in English, offering something specific instead of a generic question, and you'll hear it in almost every cafe, restaurant, or shop conversation you come across. Let's move to our second conversation. This time we're on a street corner in a city. A tourist named Sophia is looking a bit lost, holding a paper map, and a local man named Marcus walks by. Sophia says, "Excuse me, sorry to bother you, but could you help me find the train station?" Marcus says, "Oh, sure, no worries. You're actually not too far. Just go straight down this street for about 2 blocks, then turn left at the big bookstore on the corner." Sophia asks, "Left at the bookstore? Got it." "And then," Marcus continues, "then you'll see a park on your right, walk past it, and the station entrance is right there. You can't miss it. It's a big glass building." Sophia says, "That's great. Thank you so much. Is it a long walk?" Marcus replies, "Not really. Maybe 10 minutes if you walk at a normal pace." Sophia smiles and says, "Perfect. Thanks again. You've saved my day." Marcus laughs and says, "No problem at all. Happens to everyone. This city can be confusing even for people who've lived here for years." Sophia says, "That actually makes me feel a lot better. Have a good rest of your day." Marcus replies, "You too. Safe travels." So, question 1. How many blocks does Sophia need to walk straight before turning? And question 2. What landmark does Marcus mention to help her know where to turn? Thinking time. Okay, here we go. Sophia needs to walk straight for about 2 blocks, and Marcus tells her to turn left at the bookstore, which is on the corner. He also mentions a park further along, right before the station. Notice how Marcus gives directions in a very typical way, using sequence words like "then" and "after that." Learning to catch these little connector words, first, then, after, next, is honestly one of the fastest ways to improve your listening, because they tell your brain what order things happen in, even if you miss a word or two around them. Here's another small thing worth noticing. Sophia says, "You've saved my day" at the end. That's a warm, friendly way of thanking someone for being really helpful. A bit stronger than just saying thanks. English speakers love using these slightly bigger expressions of gratitude in casual situations. "You've saved my day," "You're a lifesaver," "I owe you one," and understanding them will help you sound much more natural too, not just help you understand others better. Also, pay attention to how Marcus describes the station. A big glass building. You can't miss it. Giving a visual description like that is extremely common when explaining directions, because numbers of blocks and street names are hard to remember, but a big glass building sticks in your mind much more easily. Now for conversation number 3, and this one takes place in a doctor's office. A patient named Emma is sitting with Dr. Wells, who's just finished checking something. Dr. Wells says, "All right, Emma, so based on what you're describing, it sounds like a mild throat infection, nothing too serious." Emma says, "Oh, that's a relief, honestly. I was a little worried it might be something worse." Dr. Wells says, "No, don't worry. I'm going to prescribe some antibiotics. Take them twice a day, once in the morning and once before bed, for 7 days." Emma asks, "Should I take them with food?" Dr. Wells replies, "Yes, that's a good idea. It'll be easier on your stomach. Also, drink plenty of water. and try to rest your voice as much as possible for the next few days." Emma nods and asks, "And if it doesn't get better after a week?" Dr. Wells says, "Then come back and we'll take another look. But honestly, most people feel much better within 3 or 4 days." Emma asks, "Can I still go to work while I'm on the antibiotics?" Dr. Wells replies, "You can, but I'd suggest taking it easy the first couple of days if you can. Your body needs energy to fight the infection, not just to get through a busy workday." Question time. First, how many times a day does Emma need to take her medicine? And second, what 2 extra pieces of advice does the doctor give her besides taking medicine? Pause and think. Okay, so Emma needs to take the antibiotics twice a day, morning and night, for 7 days. And the extra advice is to drink plenty of water and rest her voice. This conversation is a great example of how real English speakers give instructions. They don't just say one thing and stop. They add extra details afterward, almost like they're thinking out loud. So when you're listening, don't switch off after the first piece of information. The important stuff sometimes comes right after. One more thing worth noticing here. When Emma says that's a relief, honestly, she's expressing that she was worried before, and now she feels better. Relief is such a useful word for talking about emotions, and you'll hear it whenever someone was nervous or scared about something. And then it turns out to be okay. You might hear someone say, "What a relief," or "I felt so relieved when I heard the news." Also, listen to how the doctor structures his instructions. Take them twice a day, once in the morning and once before bed. He repeats the number in 2 different ways, twice a day and then once, which is actually a really common pattern in spoken English when someone wants to make sure the listener really understands the timing correctly. Let's go to conversation 4 now. This one's a job interview. A young woman named Grace is interviewing for a position, and the interviewer is Mr. Turner. Mr. Turner says, "So Grace, tell me a little about your previous work experience." Grace says, "Sure, I worked as a customer service assistant for about 2 years at a retail store. And before that, I did an internship at a marketing company for 6 months." Mr. Turner asks, "And what made you want to apply for this position specifically?" Grace answers, "Honestly, I've always been interested in project management, and this role seems like a perfect next step for me, especially because it involves working with different teams, which I really enjoy." Mr. Turner nods and says, "That's good to hear. One more question. Are you available to start immediately, or do you need to give notice at your current job?" Grace replies, "I'd need to give 2 weeks' notice, but after that, I'm completely free to start." Mr. Turner says, "That's very reasonable. Most companies expect that anyway." Before we finish, do you have any questions for me? Grace thinks for a moment and says, "Actually, yes. What does a typical first month look like for someone in this role?" Mr. Turner smiles and says, "Good question. Mostly training and shadowing the current team. Nothing too overwhelming. We like to ease people in gradually." All right, question 1. How long did Grace work in customer service? And question 2. How much notice does she need to give before starting the new job? Let's check your answers. Grace worked in customer service for about 2 years, and she needs to give 2 weeks' notice before she can start the new position. This kind of conversation is super useful to practice because job interviews follow a pretty predictable pattern. Past experience, motivation, availability, And if you can recognize that pattern, you'll find it much easier to follow along, even in real interviews, not just listening exercises. Let's talk about one phrase that's incredibly useful here: next step. Grace says this role seems like a perfect next step for me. And that phrase, next step, is used all the time when people talk about career growth or plans in general, not just job interviews. You might hear someone say, "What's the next step in this project?" Or, after finishing university, the next step was finding a job. It's a simple phrase, but a really natural-sounding one. Also notice the structure of the whole conversation: past, then present, then future, past work experience, current motivation, and future availability. Interviews in English almost always move through time in that order. So once you know that pattern, following an interview becomes much less stressful. Conversation number 5 takes us outside, where two neighbors, Liam and Hannah, run into each other while getting their mail. Liam says, "Morning, Hannah. Can you believe this weather? It was freezing yesterday, and now it feels like spring." Hannah laughs and says, "I know, right? I actually left my coat at home this morning because I thought it would still be cold. Big mistake." Liam says, "Yeah, the forecast says it's going to stay warm for the rest of the week, though. Sunny, maybe up to 22 degrees by Friday." Hannah says, "Oh, that's perfect, actually. Because I'm hosting a little barbecue on Saturday, warm weather would be amazing for that." Liam says, "That sounds fun. Are you inviting the whole street, or just a few people?" Hannah replies, "Just a few neighbors. You should come, around 6 in the evening." Liam smiles and says, "I'd love that. Thanks for the invite." Hannah says, "Of course. Feel free to bring something if you want, but honestly, it's not necessary. Just bring yourself." Liam replies, "I'll bring some drinks at least. Can't show up empty-handed." So, question 1. What mistake did Hannah make this morning because of the weather? And question 2. What event is Hannah planning for Saturday, and what time does it start? Ready? Hannah forgot her coat because she expected cold weather, but it turned out warm. And she's hosting a barbecue on Saturday at 6 in the evening. Weather talk might seem boring, but it's actually one of the most common types of small talk in English, and it often leads into other topics, like plans for the weekend. So pay attention when a conversation starts with the weather, because it usually goes somewhere else pretty quickly. There's a nice little expression here too: big mistake. Hannah says leaving her coat at home was a big mistake. And this is such a common, casual way to describe a small error, not something serious, just an everyday slip-up. You'll hear native speakers say things like, "I forgot my umbrella. Big mistake." Or, "I ate before checking the menu. Big mistake." It adds a little humor and honesty to the story. And notice how Liam gives a specific temperature, up to 22 degrees by Friday. In everyday English conversations, people often give approximate numbers using words like maybe, about, or around, which softens the statement and shows they're not 100% certain, just estimating. Let's continue with conversation 6, where two friends, Noah and Ava, are planning a trip together. Ava says, "So I was looking at flights, and I think the cheapest option is leaving on a Thursday and coming back the following Tuesday." Noah says, That's 5 nights, right? I was thinking more like a week." Ava replies, "We could extend it, but the prices go up a lot if we fly back on a weekend." Noah says, "Okay, fair enough. Thursday to Tuesday works for me. Where are we staying? Did you find anything?" Ava answers, Yeah, I found a small apartment near the city center. It's not fancy, but it has great reviews, and it's close to everything. Noah asks, how much is it per night? Ava says, about $80, so split between us. That's not bad at all. Noah says, sounds like a solid plan. Let's book it before the prices change. Ava says, agreed. I'll book the flights tonight. Can you handle the apartment? Noah replies, sure. I'll message the host right now and confirm the dates. Ava says, perfect. This trip is actually happening. I'm getting excited already. Question 1. How many nights will Noah and Ava be traveling for? Question 2. Why did they choose that apartment near the city center? Thinking time. So, they'll be traveling for 5 nights, Thursday to Tuesday. And they chose the apartment because it has great reviews, and it's close to everything, even though it's not fancy. This is a great example of a planning conversation, where two people go back and forth, propose something, react to it, and adjust. In real listening situations, plans often change slightly during the conversation, so don't assume the first idea mentioned is the final decision. Keep listening until the end. Notice the phrase fair enough that Noah uses when he agrees with Ava's suggestion, even though it wasn't exactly what he first wanted. Fair enough is a really common way of accepting something, showing that you understand the reasoning even if it's not your first choice. It's softer than just saying okay, and it shows a bit of flexibility, which is a nice quality to express in English conversations. Also, listen to how prices are discussed here. $80 a night, split between us. That's not bad at all. Splitting costs is a very common topic in English conversations about travel or shared living, so getting comfortable with phrases like split the cost or split it evenly will help you a lot in real conversations with friends or roommates. Conversation 7 is a quick one between two roommates, Ryan and Zoe, about borrowing something. Ryan asks, hey Zoe, do you still have my phone charger? I lent it to you last week. Zoe says, oh, sorry. Yes, I do. I completely forgot to give it back. It's in my room. On the desk, I think. Ryan says, no worries. Could I grab it now? I really need it. My phone's about to die. Zoe replies, of course. Go ahead. The door's open. Actually, wait. I think I moved it to my bag yesterday. Let me check. Ryan says, take your time, but please hurry a little. I have a call in 10 minutes. Zoe finds it and says, found it. Here you go. Sorry again for the delay. Ryan says, no worries at all. Thank you. Zoe adds, I'll buy you your own charger honestly, so this doesn't happen again. Ryan laughs and says, deal. That would actually solve the problem for good. Question 1. Why does Ryan need the charger urgently? Question 2. Where does Zoe finally find the charger? Let's see. Ryan needs it because his phone is about to die and he has a call in 10 minutes. Zoe finds the charger in her bag, even though she first thought it was on the desk. This conversation shows something really common in real speech. People often correct themselves mid-conversation. First, Zoe says one location. Then she changes her answer. Real English is full of these small self-corrections, so don't panic if a speaker changes what they said. Just follow the most recent, updated information. There's a really practical phrase in this one too, about to. Ryan says his phone is about to die, meaning it's going to happen very soon, almost immediately. About to is used constantly in spoken English to talk about something that's on the verge of happening. I'm about to leave, dinner's about to be ready, She's about to call you. It's a small grammar structure, but an extremely common one. And once you start noticing it, you'll hear it everywhere. Also notice how casual and quick this whole conversation is. Short sentences, quick replies. That's actually very typical of conversations between people who live together or know each other well. Less formal politeness, more direct and efficient exchanges. Let's move on to Conversation 8, Apartment Hunting. Ethan is looking at an apartment, and Miss Carter is the landlord showing him around. Miss Carter says, "So this is the living room. As you can see, it gets a lot of natural light in the afternoon." Ethan says, "Oh, nice. I like that. How old is the building?" Ms. Carter replies, "It was built about 15 years ago, but everything was renovated 2 years ago. New kitchen, new bathroom, all of it." Ethan asks, "And is the rent negotiable at all?" Ms. Carter says, "A little. If you sign a 12-month contract instead of 6 months, I can lower it by about $50 a month." Ethan says, "That's good to know. What about utilities? Are they included?" Ms. Carter answers, "Water is included, but electricity and internet are separate. You'd need to set those up yourself." Ethan asks, "Is there parking available too?" Ms. Carter says, "Yes, actually. There's one parking spot included with the apartment, right behind the building. And it's covered, so no worrying about snow or rain on your car." Ethan says, "Oh, that's a nice bonus. I wasn't expecting that." Question 1. How much can Ethan save per month if he signs a longer contract? Question 2. Which utility is included in the rent? Okay, let's check. Ethan can save $50 a month if he signs a 12-month contract instead of 6. And water is the utility that's included, while electricity and internet are not. Apartment and housing conversations are full of numbers, prices, months, discounts, so this type of listening really trains your brain to catch numerical details quickly, which is honestly one of the trickier parts of listening comprehension for a lot of learners. One expression worth remembering here is negotiable. Ethan asks if the rent is negotiable, meaning is there room to discuss or change the price? You'll hear this word in lots of situations involving money, salaries, prices, contracts. Is the price negotiable? Is the salary negotiable? It's a slightly more formal word, but a really useful one once you start dealing with bigger life decisions in English, like renting an apartment or negotiating a job offer. Also, notice how Ms. Carter explains the age of the building and then immediately mentions the renovation. That's a common pattern when someone is trying to reassure a potential renter or buyer, giving a slightly negative fact, then quickly balancing it with a positive one. Now, Conversation 9. At a gym between Jack, who's a regular member, and Ella, a new member asking for advice. Ella says, "Excuse me, sorry to interrupt, but do you know if this machine works the shoulders or the back?" Jack says, "Oh, that one's mainly for the back, actually. If you want shoulders, there's a better machine right over there, by the mirrors." Ella says, "Ah, thank you. I'm still learning where everything is here. I just joined last week." Jack replies, "No problem. It took me a while too when I started. Are you following any particular program or just trying things out?" Ella says, "Honestly, just trying things out for now. I want to get stronger, but I don't really know where to start." Jack suggests, "If you want, there are free trainer sessions on Wednesdays. I'd recommend booking one. It really helped me in the beginning." Ella says, "That's really helpful. Thank you." I'll sign up for one this week. Jack says, no problem. Good luck with everything. You'll get the hang of it fast. Trust me. Question 1. What does Ella want to work on, and where does Jack tell her to go instead? Question 2. What does Jack recommend Ella do, since she's new and unsure where to start? Let's check your answers. Ella wants to work on her shoulders, and Jack tells her to use the machine by the mirrors instead of the one she was near. And Jack recommends she book a free trainer session, which happens on Wednesdays. This conversation is a nice example of someone giving advice politely, using phrases like "if you want" and "I'd recommend," which are incredibly common and useful in everyday spoken English. So try to notice how advice is often introduced gently, not as a direct order. Let's highlight the phrase "trying things out," which Ella uses to describe her approach to the gym. It means experimenting, testing different options without a strict plan yet, and it's a really natural way to describe being in the early exploring stage of something, whether that's a new hobby, a new job, or even a new relationship. You might say, I'm still trying things out with cooking, or we're just trying things out as a team for now. It sounds much more casual and human than saying I am experimenting, which can sound a bit stiff or overly formal in everyday conversation. Conversation 10 brings us to a library, where Chloe is looking for a book, and Nathan works at the front desk. Chloe says, "Hi, I'm looking for a book called The Silent River. I think it's by an author named Grant." Nathan checks his computer and says, "Let me see. Yes, we have 2 copies, but it looks like both are currently checked out." Chloe says, "Oh no, really? Any idea when they'll be back?" Nathan replies, "One is due back in 3 days, the other in about a week. Would you like me to put a hold on the first one for you?" Chloe says, "Yes, please. That would be great." Nathan asks, "Can I get your library card number?" Chloe reads it out, and Nathan confirms, "Perfect. You're all set. We'll email you when it's ready for pickup." Chloe asks, "Can I also look around today while I wait?" Nathan says, "Of course. Feel free to browse the new arrivals section near the front. We just added some great titles this week." Question 1. Why can't Chloe get the book today? Question 2. What does Nathan offer to do for her? Thinking time. Chloe can't get the book today because both copies are currently checked out by other people. Nathan offers to put a hold on the copy that's due back sooner, in 3 days, and he'll email her when it's ready. This is a really practical, everyday type of conversation, and it shows how service workers often offer solutions instead of just saying, "No, that's not available," which is a really common and polite pattern in English. There's also a nice small phrase here, "all set." Nathan says you're all set after taking Chloe's library card number, and all set is a friendly, casual way of saying everything is ready or done. You'll hear it in restaurants, shops, checkouts, all over the place. Are you all set? That's you all set. We're all set to go. It's short, it's easy to say, and it instantly makes you sound more natural and less like you're translating word for word from your own language. All right, let's take a short breath here. We're halfway through, 10 conversations down, 10 to go, and honestly, if you've followed along this far and understood most of it, that's a really good sign. It means your listening skills are stronger than you probably give yourself credit for. I know some of these conversations moved fast, and some of them had numbers, times, prices, all packed together. And if a couple of details slipped past you, that's completely normal. Don't be hard on yourself about it. Even native speakers miss details in conversation sometimes. That's just how real spoken language works. It's fast, it's a little messy, and it doesn't wait for anyone. The fact that you're sitting here practicing on purpose already puts you ahead of most learners who only study grammar rules and never actually train their ears. Let's keep the momentum going. 10 more conversations, and I promise, these next ones are just as useful, maybe even more interesting. Conversation 11 is a bit more tense, a noise complaint between two neighbors, Mr. Diaz and Miss Reed. Mr. Diaz knocks and says, "Hi, sorry to bother you, but I wanted to mention the music last night was pretty loud, until around midnight actually, and I have work early in the morning." Ms. Reed says, "Oh, I'm really sorry about that. We had some friends over and honestly lost track of time." Mr. Diaz replies, "No worries. I just wanted to let you know. It's not usually a problem, it was just later than normal last night." Ms. Reed says, "That's completely fair. I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. And if we do have people over, I'll try to keep it down after 10. Mr. Diaz says, "That would be great. Thanks for understanding. I really appreciate it." Ms. Reed says, "Honestly, thank you for coming to talk to me directly, instead of just complaining to the building manager. I really respect that." Mr. Diaz replies, "Of course, we're neighbors. Better to just talk it through." Question 1. Until what time was the music loud? Question 2. What does Ms. Reed promise to do in the future? Let's check. The music was loud until around midnight, and Ms. Reed promises to keep the noise down after 10 in the future if she has people over. This conversation is great for practicing how English speakers handle mild conflict politely. Notice how Mr. Diaz softens his complaint with phrases like "sorry to bother you" and "no worries," even though he's technically complaining. That politeness pattern is very typical in English-speaking cultures, and recognizing it helps you understand tone, not just words. There's a great little phrase here worth remembering: lost track of time. Ms. Reed says they lost track of time, which means they didn't notice how late it was getting. Time just passed without them realizing. It's such a common and human expression. We've all done it, gotten so absorbed in something, a conversation, a game, a movie, that hours pass without us noticing. You might say, "Sorry I'm late. I completely lost track of time," and people will understand immediately. No long explanation needed. Also notice the structure of the apology here. Ms. Reed doesn't just say, "sorry." She explains why, and then offers a solution for the future, which is a really complete, mature way to handle a small conflict in English. Conversation 12 is at a clothing store, where Lucas is returning an item, and Isabella is the shop assistant helping him. Lucas says, "Hi, I bought this jacket last week, but it doesn't fit quite right. I'd like to return it if possible." Isabella asks, "Do you have the receipt with you?" Lucas replies, "Yes, right here." Isabella checks it and says, "Great, this is within our 30-day return window, so that's no problem at all. Would you like a refund, or would you prefer to exchange it for a different size?" Lucas says, "Actually, do you have this same jacket in a size large?" Isabella checks and says, "Let me look. Yes, we do have one left in large. Would you like me to bring it out?" Lucas says, "Yes, please. That would be perfect." Isabella brings the jacket and says, "Here you go. Try it on if you'd like, just to make sure the fit is right this time." Lucas tries it and smiles, saying, "Yeah, This feels much better. Thank you for your help. Question 1. Why is Lucas returning the jacket? Question 2. Does he choose a refund or an exchange? Okay, let's verify. Lucas is returning the jacket because it doesn't fit right, and he chooses an exchange for a size large instead of a refund. Shopping and return conversations are extremely common in daily life, and they usually follow a clear pattern: reason for return, checking receipt or policy, then offering choices, refund, or exchange. Once you recognize this pattern, these conversations become much easier to follow, even at natural speaking speed. One phrase worth noting here is "within the window," as in within our 30-day return window. A window, in this sense, doesn't mean glass. It means a period of time during which something is allowed or possible. You'll hear this in lots of contexts. There's a small window to apply for this program, or the delivery window is between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. It's a slightly more advanced way of talking about time limits, but it's used constantly in shops, services, and even scheduling appointments. So it's a great one to add to your vocabulary. Conversation 13 is a phone call. Ben is calling customer service about his phone plan, and Laura is the representative helping him. Laura says, "Thank you for calling. This is Laura. How can I help you today?" Ben says, "Hi, I wanted to ask about upgrading my phone plan. I keep running out of data every month." Laura says, "Sure, let me check your account." "Okay, I see you're currently on the 5 gigabyte plan. We do have a 10 gigabyte plan available for just $5 more per month." Ben asks, "Is there any plan with unlimited data?" Laura replies, "Yes, there is, but it's significantly more expensive, about $30 more than what you're paying now." Ben thinks and says, I think the 10 gigabyte plan should be enough, actually. Let's go with that one." Laura says, "Great choice. I'll update that for you right now. It'll take effect starting next billing cycle." Ben asks, "Will I get a confirmation email?" Laura replies, "Yes, you'll receive one within the next few minutes. And if anything looks wrong, just call us back and we'll sort it out immediately." Ben says, "Perfect. Thanks so much for your help today." Laura says, "You're welcome. Have a great rest of your day." Question 1. Why is Ben calling customer service? Question 2. Which plan does he finally choose? Let's check. Ben is calling because he keeps running out of data every month on his current plan, and he chooses the 10 gigabyte plan, which costs $5 more instead of the more expensive unlimited plan. Phone and customer service calls are a fantastic listening practice because they're full of numbers and comparisons. This plan versus that plan. This price versus that price. So training your ear on this type of conversation really helps with real-life situations too, not just tests. Notice the phrase "take effect" that Laura uses. It'll take effect starting next billing cycle. Take effect means when something officially starts working or applying, and you'll hear it with rules, changes, medications, and plans. The new policy takes effect next month, or the medicine should take effect within 30 minutes. It's a slightly formal phrase, but you'll hear it constantly in customer service calls, contracts, and official announcements, so it's worth knowing even if you wouldn't necessarily use it yourself in super casual conversation. Conversation 14. Two friends, Mason and Olivia, are chatting about their weekend plans. Olivia asks, "Any plans this weekend? Or are you just relaxing?" Mason says, "Actually, I'm going hiking on Saturday with a few people from work. We're doing a trail about 2 hours outside the city. Olivia says, "Oh, nice. That sounds fun. What about Sunday?" Mason replies, "Sunday, I'm keeping free. Honestly, probably just resting. Maybe watching a movie." "What about you?" Olivia says, "I'm actually helping my sister move apartments on Saturday, which honestly sounds exhausting. But Sunday, I'm completely free too." Mason says, "Oh, wait. If you're free Sunday, want to grab lunch or something?" Olivia says, "Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that." Mason says, "There's a new sandwich place near the park. Want to try that?" Olivia replies, "Sure. I've heard good things about it. Let's meet around noon." Question 1. What is Mason doing on Saturday? Question 2. What do Mason and Olivia decide to do together? Thinking time. Mason is going hiking with co-workers on Saturday, and they decide to grab lunch together on Sunday, since they're both free that day. This is a really typical friend-to-friend conversation, casual, relaxed, and it ends with a spontaneous plan, which happens constantly in real English conversations. People often make plans on the spot, in the middle of talking about something else entirely. Here's a nice casual phrase, grab lunch. Mason says, "Want to grab lunch or something?" And grab is used all the time in casual English to mean get or have, especially with food and drinks. "Let's grab a coffee." "I'll grab a snack before we leave." "Want to grab dinner later?" It sounds much more relaxed and friendly than saying, "Let's have lunch together," which can sound a little more formal or planned. Using grab in the right context instantly makes your English sound more natural and casual, exactly the tone you'd want with a close friend. Conversation 15 takes place in a kitchen, where Aunt Rosa is teaching her nephew Leo how to cook something. Leo says, "Okay, so first I chop the onions, right?" Aunt Rosa says, "Yes, small pieces, not too big. Then you add them to the pan with a little oil. Medium heat, not too hot." Leo asks, "How long do I cook them for?" Aunt Rosa replies, "About 5 minutes, until they turn a little golden, then add the garlic, but only for about 30 seconds. Garlic burns really fast." Leo says, "Got it? And then the tomatoes?" Aunt Rosa says, "Exactly. Add the tomatoes, a pinch of salt, and let it simmer for 15 minutes, stirring occasionally so it doesn't stick to the pan." Leo asks, "How will I know when it's done?" Aunt Rosa says, "The sauce will thicken a bit, and it'll smell absolutely amazing. Trust your nose more than the clock on this one." Question 1. How long should Leo cook the onions before adding garlic? Question 2. Why does Aunt Rosa say to add the garlic for only 30 seconds? Let's check. Leo should cook the onions for about 5 minutes, until golden. And garlic is added for only 30 seconds, because it burns very quickly. Cooking conversations are actually excellent listening practice because they're full of sequence words and specific timing. First, then, after that, and numbers, which trains your brain to follow instructions in order. A skill that's incredibly useful, not just for English tests, but for real life, too. Quick note on the phrase pinch of salt, which Aunt Rosa uses when she says, "Add a pinch of salt." A pinch is a tiny amount, literally as much as you could hold between 2 fingers, and it's used specifically for things like salt, pepper, spices, small dry ingredients. You'll hear it in almost every cooking conversation in English. Add a pinch of sugar, just a pinch, not too much. It's a lovely, very visual little word, and once you learn it, you'll never forget it, because you can almost picture the small amount just by hearing the word pinch. Conversation 16. Maya is asking her friend Sam to look after her cat while she's away. Maya says, "Hey, so I'm traveling next week, Monday to Friday. Would you be able to check on my cat while I'm gone?" Sam says, "Of course, no problem at all. What does she need exactly?" Maya replies, "Just food twice a day, morning and evening, and fresh water, and maybe just 15 minutes of playtime so she doesn't get too bored." Sam asks, "Does she need her litter box cleaned too?" Maya says, "Oh yes, definitely. Once a day is enough. I'll leave everything you need on the kitchen counter. Food, instructions, spare key." Sam says, "Sounds easy enough. Don't worry. I've got this." Maya says, "Thank you so much. I'll text you when I land so you know I'm safe." Sam replies, "Sounds good. Have an amazing trip. And don't worry about a thing here." Question 1. How many days will Maya be away? Question 2. How many times a day does the cat need to be fed? Let's verify. Maya will be away for 5 days, Monday to Friday, and the cat needs to be fed twice a day, morning and evening. This kind of favor between friends conversation is really common, and it often includes a list of small instructions, which is great practice for catching multiple pieces of information in a row, without losing track of any of them. There's a fun little phrase at the end here, "I've got this." Sam says it to reassure Maya that he can handle everything while she's away, and it's such a confident, friendly way of saying, "Don't worry. I can manage this. You don't need to worry about it." You'll hear it whenever someone wants to sound capable and relaxed about a task. "Need help with that box? No. I've got this." Or "Don't worry about the presentation. I've got this." It's short, casual, and honestly, it makes you sound really confident when you use it correctly. Conversation 17 happens at a car repair shop. Tom brought his car in, and Frank is the mechanic. Frank says, "All right, Tom, I took a look. The good news is it's nothing major, just a worn-out brake pad. That's what was making that squeaking noise." Tom says, "Oh, that's a relief. Honestly, I thought it might be something with the engine." Frank replies, "No, engine's totally fine. I can replace the brake pad today, actually. It'll take about an hour, and it'll cost around $90, including parts and labor." Tom asks, "Can I wait here while you do it?" Frank says, "Sure. There's a waiting area with coffee just around the corner. I'll come get you when it's ready." Tom asks, "Should I be worried about the other brake pads too?" Frank replies, "Not really, but I'll check them while I'm in there anyway, just to be safe. No extra charge for that. Just good practice on my end." Tom says, "I appreciate that. Thanks for being thorough." Question 1. What was causing the squeaking noise in Tom's car? Question 2. How long will the repair take, and how much will it cost? Let's check. The squeaking noise was caused by a worn-out brake pad, and the repair will take about an hour and cost around $90. Car repair conversations are great practice because mechanics often explain a problem, then give a solution, then a price and time estimate. A very predictable structure that, once you recognize it, makes these conversations much less intimidating to listen to. One phrase worth remembering here is "nothing major." Frank tells Tom it's nothing major, meaning the problem isn't serious, nothing to really worry about. It's a really reassuring phrase, and you'll hear it from doctors, mechanics, technicians, anyone trying to calm someone down before explaining a small problem. It's nothing major, just a small issue, nothing major. We can fix it easily. Learning to recognize this phrase quickly can genuinely calm your nerves in real situations too. because the moment you hear nothing major, you know good news is coming next. Conversation. 18. Two old friends, Anna and David, run into each other after a long time apart. Anna says, "Oh my gosh, David, is that you? I haven't seen you in years." David says, "Anna? Wow, what a surprise. How have you been?" Anna replies, "Good, really good actually. I moved to a new city about 2 years ago for work. Just visiting home this week." David says, "That's amazing. Are you still working in graphic design?" Anna says, "Yes, actually. I got promoted last year. I'm leading a small team now." David replies, "That's incredible. Congratulations. We should catch up properly. Are you free for coffee before you leave?" Anna says, "Definitely. I'm here until Sunday. Let's figure out a time." David says, "How about tomorrow afternoon at that little cafe we used to go to?" Anna smiles and says, "Oh, I completely forgot about that place. Yes, let's do that. It'll be nice to see it again." Question 1. Why did Anna move to a new city? Question 2. What happened to Anna's job last year? Let's check. Anna moved to a new city about 2 years ago for work. And last year, she got promoted and now leads a small team. Reunion conversations like this one are full of emotional expressions and reactions. "Oh my gosh! Wow! That's incredible!" And these little expressions carry a lot of meaning in spoken English, even more than the actual information sometimes. So pay attention to tone and reaction words. They tell you how someone feels about what they're hearing. Let's look at the phrase "catch up properly" that David uses. Catch up means to update each other on what's happened since you last spoke, and adding properly means doing it in a real, relaxed way, not just a quick 5-minute chat. You'll hear this constantly among friends who haven't seen each other in a while. "We should catch up soon. Let's catch up properly over coffee sometime." It's one of the warmest, most commonly used phrases in English for reconnecting with someone, and it's a lovely one to use naturally in your own conversations too. Conversation 19. Kevin and Lily are discussing a movie they just watched together. Kevin says, "So, what did you think?" "Honestly, I really enjoyed it. Way more than I expected." Lily says, "I liked it too, but I thought the ending felt a little rushed, like they tried to wrap everything up too quickly." Kevin replies, "Yeah, I get that, but I actually thought the twist made sense, if you think back to that scene earlier in the movie." Lily says, "True, that's a fair point. I didn't connect those two scenes until you mentioned it." Kevin asks, "Would you watch the sequel if they make one?" Lily says, "Honestly, yes, definitely. Even with the rushed ending, I'm still curious what happens next." Question 1. What was Lily's main criticism of the movie? Question 2. Does Lily want to watch a sequel if one is made? Let's check. Lily's main criticism was that the ending felt rushed. And yes, she does want to watch a sequel, despite that criticism. This kind of casual opinion conversation is great listening practice because people often disagree slightly, then find some agreement, which is very natural in real conversations. Opinions are rarely 100% aligned, and being able to follow that back and forth is a really valuable listening skill. There's a nice little phrase here, too. "That's a fair point." Lily says it after Kevin explains his view of the twist, and it means she recognizes that what he said makes sense, even if she doesn't fully agree yet. It's a really respectful way of responding during a disagreement, acknowledging the other person's logic without necessarily changing your whole opinion. You'll hear it in debates, casual chats, even work meetings. That's a fair point. I hadn't thought of it that way. Or, okay, fair point. Let me think about that. It's a wonderful phrase for sounding thoughtful and open-minded in English conversations. And finally, Conversation 20, our last one for today, a tech support call. Rachel is calling because her internet isn't working, and James is the support agent. James says, "Thank you for calling tech support. This is James. What seems to be the problem today?" Rachel says, "Hi. My internet has been really slow for the past 2 days. Sometimes it disconnects completely for a few minutes." James asks, "Okay, have you tried restarting your router?" Rachel replies, "Yes, I tried that twice already. It helped for a little while, but then it slowed down again." James says, "All right, let me check your connection from my end." "Okay, I see there's actually some maintenance happening in your area. It should be finished by tomorrow evening." Rachel asks, "So there's nothing I can do until then?" James replies, "Unfortunately not much, but if it's still slow after tomorrow evening, definitely call us back and we'll send a technician." Rachel asks, "Will there be any discount on my bill for this inconvenience?" James says, "That's a fair question. Let me add a small credit to your account for the trouble. You should see it reflected on your next bill." Rachel says, "Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. It makes waiting a bit easier." Question 1. What problem is Rachel experiencing with her internet? Question 2. What does James discover is causing the issue? Let's check. Rachel's internet has been slow for 2 days and sometimes disconnects completely. And James discovers it's due to maintenance happening in her area, which should be finished by tomorrow evening. This is a great example of a troubleshooting conversation, where the support agent asks questions first, checks something, then explains a cause, a pattern you'll hear constantly in real-life customer service calls. So recognizing this structure genuinely makes these calls easier to follow, even when you're a little nervous speaking on the phone in English. And that's all 20 conversations. Congratulations for making it through the whole thing. If you followed along and understood most of what happened in each one, that's a really strong sign that your listening skills are developing nicely. And honestly, that's not easy, so give yourself some credit. 20 conversations, 20 different situations, cafes, doctors, job interviews, phone calls, arguments with neighbors. That's a lot of real, natural English you just trained your ears on. And every single one of those situations could happen to you in real life, which means you're not just practicing for a test. You're practicing for actual moments you might find yourself in someday. Before you go, here's my honest advice. If you want to get better at listening faster, don't just watch videos like this one passively. Come back to this same video in a few days. Listen again without looking at any notes you took, and see how much more you catch the second time. I promise you, it'll be more, almost every single time. Your brain remembers patterns, phrases, and rhythms even when you don't realize it. And repetition really is one of the most powerful tools for improving listening comprehension, more powerful than most people think. It's not glamorous advice. Nobody wants to hear repeat the same thing again. But it works. And it works better than jumping around to 10 different new videos every day without ever going back to reinforce what you've already learned. Now, remember that small challenge I mentioned at the very beginning? Here it is. Pick just one phrase from today's video. Anyone you liked? Maybe fair enough? Or I've got this? or lost track of time, and use it in a real sentence today, out loud, even if you're just talking to yourself, or texting a friend, or writing it in a notebook. Just one phrase, used once, in a real context. That tiny action, using a new word instead of just recognizing it, is honestly what separates learners who slowly improve over months from learners who plateau and feel stuck for years. Words you actually use stick in your memory in a completely different way than words you only hear passively. So give it a try. I promise it's worth the small effort. If this video helped you even a little bit, do me a favor and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more learners just like you. And if you haven't already, subscribe to English in Fluency, because we post new listening practice, speaking tips, and real conversation lessons every single week. And trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. Drop a comment below and tell me which conversation was the hardest for you to follow. I read every single comment, and it honestly helps me plan future videos around what you actually need help with. Thanks so much for spending this time with me today. Keep practicing, keep listening, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Alex, signing off from English in Fluency. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you soon.